You said recently that the, quote, extravagant promises, end of quote, made a year ago in connection with the voting rights bill have now become a shattered mockery. What exactly did you mean by that, Dr. King?
Well, I mean that this voting rights bill came into being to end not only discrimination in its overt expressions in voter registration, but also to remove the atmosphere for intimidation, for economic reprisals, and for the creation of fear that cause people not to vote. And one of the things we have found is that when you have federal registrars in communities, many more Negroes go out to register because they see a different atmosphere and they are not overarched or undergirded with the fear of intimidation and economic reprisals as much as they do in dealing with some of the local registrars that they have dealt with so long.
Martin Luther King Jr. speaking on Meet the Press. I tried to get the tech staff to get us memorial earpieces that would sort of pay tribute to that era. We couldn't find them. The politics of who gets to vote remains a vital issue to this day. With Republican gains in state houses around the country, more and more states are pushing voter ID laws, make it harder for old, poor, and disenfranchised people to vote because it's harder for them to get IDs. More of them don't have IDs. As many as 20 million eligible voters around the country do not have a government-issue ID. And joining me now to talk about this issue is Congressman Steve Cohen, a Democrat from Tennessee. Congressman, so good to have you with us this morning.
Nice to be with you from Memphis.
Well, you spoke about this very issue on the House floor back in July. What did you say, and what kind of response did you receive?
Well, we've written the Justice Department, and I think Attorney General Holder is concerned. Whip Hoyer, Steny Hoyer, had a meeting with leaders of the Progressive Caucus and the Civil Rights Caucus of the Democratic Caucus, and Wade Henderson of the Civil Rights Leadership Group on this very issue this past week. This is a national Republican effort to hinder Democratic votes to try to influence the 2012 presidency. The people who don't have photo IDs are generally Democratic supporters. They are African American, they are people of color, they are people who are more likely to be poor or extremely young. And those are the people that President Obama had strong voter support from in 2008. If they can just get about 0.5% of those folks, or even just one person, it could be in Florida, the old Chad state, to not vote because they don't have a photo ID and make it legal to stop that, they can influence the election. And then they can influence the future of the Supreme Court, which is as bad as it is now, could even be worse. The Supreme Court is really the issue. I know they said it's the economy, stupid. It's the Supreme Court. That's the issue for 2012.
Congressman, let me, I may do a bad job of this because I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here, but let me lay out the argument that those who support voter ID laws lay out, which is basically, why would you not want to verify that when a person shows up to say they are voting, they are in fact that person? We do this as a routine matter in commercial transactions. We do it as a routine matter for transportation. In all sorts of facets of American life, the basic thing you do when someone shows up and says, I am this person, is you ask for identification and they verify it. So why would we not want to do that simple act at the voting booth?
Because there are other ways to verify identification besides just a photo ID. And most precincts, captains are supposed to be there because they know the folks who come, and they know who people are, and they shouldn't have to have some artificially imposed barrier to stop people from voting. The fact is these tactics have arisen. There's really not a great problem with people voting. There's a very limited number of people who've tried to vote illegally. The number of people who would be disenfranchised because of this barrier is so much greater than the actuality of the people who vote illegally that it overcompensates in such a way that it disenfranchises those who should have the franchise. And there are obvious political backings of this. ALEC, the conservative right-wing think tank, funded in large part by the Koch brothers, who has been spreading these bills throughout the country. That's why it passed in Tennessee. And there is a method to their madness, if it be madness.
I want to just give some data here. There was an investigation by the Justice Department between 2002 2007. They didn't prosecute a single person for impersonating an eligible voter. And during that period of time, they found that out of 300 million total votes cast, Federal prosecutors convicted only 86 people, 86 of 300 million for voter fraud. Most of those people were just mistaken and not sort of intentionally trying to game the system. John, did you have something you wanted to ask the Congressman?
Definitely. What the Republicans are doing here is, it's disgusting. It is a vile kind of pragmatism. I think bringing up the poll tax is not useful, because what this is not an idea that they want to suppress the black vote because black people need to be kept quiet. The idea is that because black people tend to vote Democratic, that's a useful strategy. But the way I see it is, if we're going to honor Martin Luther King, one thing we're going to do about this is to try to legislate against it. What's going on right now makes perfect sense. It makes sense in that actually late 50s, early 60s in Tennessee, there were more registered black voters than in other southern states. Great tradition. But I think we also need to get it out into the black community that a pro-black thing, call it progressive, is to get ID. I worry about the passivity. We think, well, the black community is getting rolled, and therefore we must work from on high to stop Republicans from paying that kind of attention. The other thing that we have to do is fight it by making sure that more people have these kinds of IDs. They are more difficult things. And so I just think we need to put on different glasses and fight as well as complain.
I actually have a question for Representative Cohen. Representative, this is something that is not terribly new. I mean, we've seen Republicans do this in the past in Ohio. Why are Democrats finally now addressing this?
Well, it's a little late to come to the table for sure, but we're coming to the table now, and we're going to make a definite effort to educate voters. I had election officials at my Medicare open enrollment meeting yesterday explain to the folks that came about voting and photo IDs. We're putting it on our congressional website about how to vote and about photo IDs, and we're going to put out blasts, and I think other Congress people will join with me. We're going to make a major concerted effort to let people know to get their photo IDs and be prepared so that we don't have this problem come November of 2012.
Congressman Steve Cohen, Democrat from Tennessee, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's always great to have you on.
It's nice to be with you, and I just want people to know, as you said, I have a majority African-American district. Last week you had Keith Ellison, my friend from Minneapolis, on, who has an 85% white district. He's Muslim, I'm Jewish, his district is white, my district is black. We vote together. America is making progress, and I'm proud that Memphis, Tennessee is part of that progress.
The dream lives on in Keith Ellison and Steve Cohen. It's so great to have both of you. A new Broadway play speculates about the last night of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life. The playwright joins us with her thoughts about King after this.